Stefan. Welcome to the Deadline Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Cesar. I'm glad to be here.
We already know your amazing work, your design, your books, but today we want to know your inspiration and how you see the world of design.
Mhm.
We won't talk about your biography. We all know it. Let's talk about you as a person and what inspires you.
Okay.
When you take a sabbatical year, you look for new ideas and build projects. But how do you reach that point?
Well, right now I'm on sabbatical, so it's a good theme or a good subject to talk about. I arrived in Guadalajara in January. The original idea was to spend 4 months in Madrid, 4 months here, and then 4 months in Buenos Aires. But then we liked it so much in Guadalajara that we quit Buenos Aires and stayed for 8 months here. I'm now at the very end of the sabbatical. It will end on October 1st. And I enjoyed the time here in Guadalajara incredibly because it's a very, very good place to actually do a sabbatical. And the reason that I say so is because obviously it's a big city, but within that city, I think most of the craft people are still within the city. You know, let's say I normally live in New York, in Manhattan, where all craft and all manufacturing has left decades ago. So while I might find various crafts also somewhere in New York State, it will not, or will be very difficult to find it within the city. And so here, there is possibilities to try out new directions, things I have not tried before. Like in my case, I'm working on an installation with, I think it's called monecas, like glass marbles, or canecas? I'm not quite sure. Like glass marbles, yeah. That there is still a factory here in Zona Industrial. And, but I'm also working with a friend on bronze sculptures. I've never done anything like this before. Meaning, ultimately, I was trained as a designer and worked as a designer all my life. So we've been casting sculptures. And I think the possibility that because there's a lot of people here who do interesting work, and because there's not that many foreigners here, you still feel a little bit special. And if you tell somebody, oh, I'm actually staying here for many months, they say, oh, come over to the studio, like we'll have a drink, like I'll show you what we're working on. So I think this atmosphere is super fruitful for a sabbatical. And I found many possibilities for inspiration or for newish directions here. I'm still working overall on a direction that I've implemented earlier, meaning the idea that you can, as a designer, of course, work on subjects that have nothing to do with the commercial world. I don't have anything against the commercial world, and we did, anything from album covers to branding in the past. But I found that I've in the studio, we've always done both, or for a very long time done both, meaning pursued design to say something beyond the commercial language. And I think 6 or 7 years ago, I made that exclusive. So for the last 6 or 7 years in the studio, we have not done any commercial messages, mostly because I felt I've done that in my life. I've done enough of that. And now want to use the language of design for things that are close to my heart, which at the moment really is a message about the importance of long-term thinking, because I have discovered, or I'm very aware of the fact that almost all news that we consume, be it traditional newspapers or traditional news programs on the TV, but also almost all social media news are about the short term. And in the short term, only negative news work really well. But if you look at the world from the long term, say from a point of view of 10 years or 50 years or 100 years, you get the exact opposite impression of the world. In the long term, almost everything turned out to be positive. In the short term, almost everything turns out to be negative. And while the short term is important, because almost all of our news are short-term news and therefore negative, many of us get a completely skewed impression of the world. You know, there was a gigantic survey last year where 10,000 young people participated, and more than half, 53% of those young people thought that humanity is doomed and will come to an end during their lifetime. Now, this impression is wrong, meaning, and it's not my opinion that it's wrong, I can prove that it is wrong. And this comes from this short-termism. And, you know, many of those young people say they will never have kids because the world is too horrible of a place to put kids into it. And these impressions are truly demonstrably wrong. And if you look at humanity from the long term, in almost any case that you look at it, almost any case, we are now better off than we were 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, we were better off than 100 years ago. And 100 years ago, we were much better off than 1,000 years ago. And that is true for basically all directions that is important to us, you know, because most of us, or all of us, I would think that in this room here, would rather be alive than dead. We would rather be healthy than sick. We would rather live in peace than in war. We would rather live in a democracy than in a dictatorship. We would rather be smart than stupid. And we would rather have something to eat than be hungry. And these 6 directions that I just mentioned can actually be measured. And these things wonderfully actually have been measured over the past 200 years. We have fantastic data on these directions, and all of these things have improved. So the idea that the world has never been worse than it is now, which some of my friends actually share, is, to say it easy, wrong. Because for most of the things that actually matter in our life, things have improved. And I basically, after this long intro, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create visualizations that are interesting enough that people would want to look at them. In some cases, buy them and hang them in their living room as a reminder that what you just saw on Twitter does not mean the end of the world. And I try to do that with what I've learned as a communication designer.